Look, I just don't care.
Maybe you've seen this image floating around social media depicting the difference between virgin forests in 1620 and today.
Maybe it stopped you long enough to give it a like or drop a comment lamenting the loss of old-growth forest, but if you're anything like me, you really don't care.
And look, I get it. There are a lot of things going on in the world, and every time we turn around, there is something else to care about. But I want you to stop just for a minute and look at these trees.
This is a Douglas fir tree, and if you've ever had a Christmas tree, odds are pretty good it was a Douglas fir, at least a young one around 5 to 10 years old, because Douglas firs are actually some of the largest trees in the world. For instance, this particular tree is approximately 275 feet tall, or about the same height as the Statue of Liberty. It is 31 feet in circumference, or about 10 feet in diameter.
It's very hard to capture on camera just how absolutely massive this tree is, and it's one of hundreds here on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington.
Hey, real quick, I want to talk about a different type of tree for a minute, my family tree.
For the past couple months, I've been playing around with MyHeritage, who is sponsoring this segment of the video.
I started building out my family tree with what little information I have about my parents and grandparents, and thanks to over 33 billion historical records on MyHeritage, I was able to build out 8 generations, going all the way back to the 1660s, before the United States had declared independence.
And it's actually really cool how it works. You put in as much information as you want about parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents, and MyHeritage uses that information based on your privacy preferences to find instant discoveries, to match you with other family trees of your distant relatives to further build out your family tree. I've had instant discoveries add as many as 40 relatives to my family tree. Relatives I didn't even know I had, going back multiple generations. You can go in and see each newly discovered relative and confirm or deny it before adding it to your family tree. And you can go in and add pictures and use their built-in software to repair, enhance, and colorize your photos.
Just being honest, I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed building out my family tree and learning about how I got where I am today. MyHeritage is the #1 family history service on the internet. You can try it for free for 14 days and find out where you truly belong and celebrate the journey that got you there. You can check them out through the links in the description. Now, back to this really tall Douglas fir tree. But as massive as this tree is, it is not the tallest Douglas fir in existence. That honor goes to a tree in Oregon that has reached a staggering height of 326 feet tall, just 54 feet shy of the tallest tree in the world, which is known as Hyperion, a coastal redwood in Northern California.
And redwoods and sequoias are probably the trees you think of when you think of the tallest trees in the world, and for good reason. The General Sherman, the largest tree by mass, stands at 275 feet tall and weighs approximately 4 million pounds. Hyperion, the tallest coastal redwood, is 380 feet tall, or about as tall as one city block stood up on its end. But redwoods and sequoias haven't always been the tallest trees. In fact, in 1902, a Douglas fir known as the Lynn Valley tree was measured at 415 feet tall, but it and all the trees surrounding it were cut down and sold for lumber. And in 1896, the Noonsack giant was cut and measured at a staggering height of 465 feet tall, easily making it the tallest tree ever recorded. Cross-section of the tree was displayed in the nearby town of Bellingham, and the rest of the tree was used to produce approximately 96,000 board feet of lumber.
465 feet is near the theoretical limit of how tall trees can physically grow. Scientists have hypothesized that once you get above 450 feet, the tree's ability to deliver water to its upper branches is basically non-existent. So much so that some people have questioned the credibility of the tallest trees ever recorded.
And this is all fascinating, but it's not the most impressive thing about these trees. The trees in this forest are among some of the oldest on Earth, estimated to be about 1,000 years old. That means that this tree was sprouting its first leaves about the same time the Holy Roman Empire was emerging. That by the time this tree had reached a height of a 10-story building, Oxford University was beginning to hold its first classes. And by the time this tree had reached its mature height of 275 feet, Leonardo da Vinci was painting the Mona Lisa. These trees have been here a really long time, and left alone can continue to live here for hundreds of years after we are all dead. And if you've ever been in a forest like this, it's hard to describe the feeling it gives. Almost holy, like the feeling you get when entering a beautiful cathedral, but more alive with a sense of serene wisdom. It's what Tolkien was trying to express when he wrote the character of Treebeard, or what Dr. Seuss was trying to express when he wrote The Lorax. The value of a forest like this cannot be denied, that's for certain. It's the way that value is derived that is in question.
This is a 2x4 reclaimed from old growth lumber, and this is one I picked up at my local hardware store. I want you to notice the difference between the number and the tightness of the rings. Old growth lumber is denser, harder, and firmer. It's more resistant to rotting, warping, compression, and expansion, not to mention the sheer number of boards that can come from one old growth tree.
Which is part of the reason why these forests are in danger once again. Late last year, an amendment was proposed to the Northwest Forest Plan, which are the main governing guidelines that have protected this and similar forests since 1994. The proposed amendment, if approved, will allow logging in previously protected old-growth forests, including those in federally designated wilderness areas. The justification for this new logging plays on the fears of just about everyone living in the western United States.
Wildfires, fast-moving wildfire.
And look, I'm not trying to say that wildfires aren't a huge concern for the West and the planet going forward. I'm just not convinced that cutting down or even thinning old-growth forests is the answer.
Large, old trees are some of the most fire-resistant trees in existence. These giants have adapted to withstand fires over hundreds and hundreds of years, and studies have shown that when fires do rip through old-growth forests, they tend to burn cooler and are less severe.
The bark on a tree like this can be up to 14 inches thick, and not only insulates the tree from the heat of intense fires, but is itself fire-resistant.
Old trees like this have a high moisture content and no low-lying limbs that prevent fires from reaching the tops of the trees. It's almost as if they have adapted over long periods of time to withstand fires, and it's why a proposal to increase logging in these areas seems ludicrous.
When I first started researching this video, all the threats to old-growth forests had started under the Biden administration, originating within the Forest Service itself through the Northwest Forest Plan. But since that time, an even greater threat has emerged, with President Trump signing an emergency executive order to log over half of our country's national forests, 112 million acres, or an area roughly the size of California.
And this goes beyond old-growth forests. It will likely impact a portion of every forest in the United States. Anyone who hikes, hunts, fishes, skis, bikes, climbs, or paddles in national forests will see less opportunity to do so. And as I mentioned earlier, old-growth forests are particularly vulnerable as their lumber is the most valuable.
And that's the reason why this emergency order scares me, because these orders are seeking exemption from public comment and review from outside organizations, and even from people like you and I who recreate in these forests on a regular basis, not to mention a reduction in budget and staff. That means that the people making the decisions about these trees may not have the best interests of the forests in mind, and you and I won't be able to do anything about it. Which is why I say I don't care. I'll admit that that was a little bit of a misrepresentation. Obviously I care, or I wouldn't be making this video. What I mean to say is I can't care. There's just too many things going on in the world that demand my attention. Too many things I gotta contact my congressman about and express my opposition. I care deeply about old-growth forests. I want to be able to take my children and their grandchildren, and I want them to be able to take their children and their grandchildren and show them these forests that used to be the tallest in the world, defying both physics and gravity with their height. I just can't care.
So what's going to happen to these forests? I don't know. What I do know is these forests are special, and we have already lost most of them to logging. Planting new trees cannot replace what we have here. The question is anyone going to do anything about it? Or will we just put cross-sections in museums so that future generations know what we lost? I hope this video resonates with you. If it did, please let me know down in the comments below so that I know to make more like it. Don't forget that you can get a 14-day free trial from MyHeritage. You can start building your family tree and researching your family history. And then if you want to contact your representatives and let them know that we want strong protections, not only for old growth forests, but for national forests everywhere, I'll put a couple of resources down in the description. And then be sure to like, subscribe, and do all those other things. And as always, thanks for watching.